welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for clicking on today's video. My name is Olivia. Yes, so as you can tell by the title, today's video is going to be a back to basics video. I'm very aware, and I do get comments from some of my subscribers and people on Instagram like, please just break it down to the basics. I haven't got 20 million palettes. I haven't got 3,000 brushes. I just need to know, if I want to start, where do I start? And that's what today's video is going to be about. This is just going to be a quick video because I'm starting off with just brushes. We'll do a separate one on eyeshadow palettes and then accessories, the extras, right? Okay, because I think those are the two main categories, and then with the rest you can kind of like add it, mix it, chop it, change it, etc. All right, so I'm gonna get started. I'm not gonna ramble, we're just gonna go right in, but of course please make sure to hit the subscribe button before we get started, and follow me on Instagram. Let's go. All right, so I own a ridiculous amount of brushes. Like, my table is covered in brushes. I own an insane amount of brushes, and to be honest, I'm not even ashamed of it because I will probably keep adding brushes. I have just ordered a new brush set. I love brushes, I love tools, I love what you can do with them. And if you play around in makeup a lot like me, then at some point you do need quite a number, so that number one, you don't have to wash them so often, and number two, that you can mix and chop and change and don't have to clean off your brush in between applications. So I want to break this down into categories. So we're going to do face brushes first, and then we'll do eye brushes. I will be showing you a variety of brushes, but I will be explaining to you the essentials, like the bare minimums. All right, so let's start off with face brushes. So we've got two big pots here, and let's start off with foundation. So of course you can use a sponge for your makeup, so if you like a sponge, go ahead and grab that, and maybe I can do a separate video on sponges and the different types and why I like particular ones for different things, but this one, let's just stick to brushes. So foundation brushes, there are basically two, possibly three types of foundation brush that you can get. Some of these are dirty, by the way. I do need to wash my brushes, so don't look at me all shady. So you've got a flat kabuki brush, looks like this, has a flat top, and it's kind of spread out like that, right? So these are just a couple to show you. Let me just hold on to one. This is one of my absolute favorite flat top brushes. It's a brush from AOA Studio, but it comes as part of a set. I don't know what it is about this brush. It is just incredible. I think I've talked about it a million times probably now in other videos whenever I use it, but I love this brush and I would highly recommend this for your foundation application. It's not too dense, it's not too tightly packed, and this is good to kind of like get a big surface area and allow you to finish your face quite quickly. All right, so flat top kabuki brush. Then an alternative is, where's another one? Here we go. Dome topped kabuki brush. Okay, so this one isn't flat, it's got a kind of rounded top. These tend to be a little bit more dense, so the hairs are packed more closely together. So as compared to this brush, this will give you a higher coverage. So if you're really looking for like super high coverage, got to cover up all my blemishes, got to cover up all my marks, go for this, a kind of dome topped brush, very dense. If you're looking for, I need medium to full coverage but not too much, then go for a flat top kabuki brush. They tend to be a little bit looser in terms of hairs. So those are the two brushes that I would recommend. And I just want to talk about the third type of brush, which is this. It's a stippling brush. This is very loose. It's kind of duo fiber brush. The hairs are kind of different lengths. This gives you the sheerest coverage of the three. I like this if I want to have a more natural, dewy, I'm not really wearing foundation look, then that's when I would use this. But the only challenge with using a brush like this is that it can be a little bit streaky. So if I'm going to use a stippling brush, then I would probably always go in afterwards with a sponge just to make sure that I don't have any streaky marks. So these are your three foundation brushes. you've got, let me put them this way. So these are your 3 foundation brushes. You've got the dome top, super dense, full coverage. You've got the flat top, medium to full coverage. And then you've got the stippling brush, which is kind of light to medium coverage. Got it? Okay. So after I've done my foundation, typically then I would go in with concealer. If I am going to use a brush to blend out my concealer under my eyes, then the kind of brush I want is a brush like this, okay? There are a few different types that you can probably get, but this is the only one I actually have and use for my concealer. It's part of a Real Techniques brush set. It's really, really old, like more than 10 years old. That's how good these brushes are. And it was marked as a contour brush, but I actually really like it because it fits under my eye quite well and helps to blend out the concealer. So it's got a kind of tapered domed top like that, and that is the kind of brush you want if you're going to use a brush for your concealer. I typically prefer to use a sponge for blending out my concealer, but if I am being lazy and I haven't wet my sponge, or if, I don't know, I'm just feeling like I want to use a brush, then this is the type that I would use. This is also good for setting my under eye with powder, okay? So if I'm going to set under this area, then I would typically use this brush as well, okay? Alright, moving on to powder brushes. Powder brushes come in all different shapes and sizes. I mean, there's no actual formula, I feel, for a powder brush. So, I mean, yeah, you can see there's like a massive variety. If it's for your all over powder, you only need one and you don't need too many brushes. Just choose the type you'd like. So you have ones like this one, which I also absolutely love. I love this brush and it's part of the same set as this one. It's really, really good. This is actually a multitasking brush. So I use this for setting all over my face. I use this for blush sometimes. I use it for bronzer sometimes, but I do just really like it because it's a good enough size to kind of get into areas of my face, but also cover my face pretty quickly. So you do want a slightly larger head brush than your foundation brush so that you can move faster. Other alternatives, like this one is really bushy and this one is absolutely giant. This one I would say could also do the same thing in terms of powder and using this all over your face, but it's just a little bit bigger, so it's preference. If you get a giant brush like this one, I mean this is absolutely humongous, I would probably use this just for like a final dusting or for bronzer because it's just so big, okay? So talking about bronzer, so you can use a brush like that, but the type of brushes I like for bronzer are these. Yeah, I've got 3 types of brushes for bronzer. So I've got a regular kind of looking powder brush that looks like this. I like this because of the way the hair moves. So when you're applying bronzer, you want a brush that will not pack on colour. Otherwise you'll end up looking really muddy and you'll end up with like a patch of colour on your face. You don't want that. You want a really nice kind of soft, diffused look. And so for that you want a brush that moves. This one moves quite a lot. And that's why I really like that one for bronzer. I got this from Clinique years ago. I don't know whether they still stock them, but if you're looking for a brush for bronzer, then just do that. Make sure it moves a lot. Alternatively, and these two are pretty much identical, just that one's a shorter handle than the other one and one's a little bit wider than the other one, but they're basically pinched brushes. So there probably would have been like a round looking brush like that, and then they've been squeezed here at the bottom, which gives them a kind of rectangular narrow shape like that, but they are still very fluffy. I mean, these move a lot, right? And I like these because I can get into my cheekbones to bronze and I can get across my hairline, and it moves pretty fast with this kind of a brush. So I like them both. Again, these were both from Clinique years ago. I haven't got an exact recommendation for where you can get this exact shape, but if you do come across it and you're wondering what that brush is for, I would suggest that you use it for bronzer. Sticking to the cheeks, let's go in for contour. So for contour, you kind of want a little bit of a precise application. You don't want it like the bronzer to kind of diffuse and go all over the place. You want it kind of concentrated right here to kind of cut your cheeks, or right down here at the bottom to kind of do the structural work. So for that you want quite a precise brush. So again, I've got a brush like this which is pinched and has this kind of shape. That shape, or a small brush like this, which also has a kind of almost rectangular oblong shape. That's the ones that you want because they'll fit perfectly here into your cheeks. One that looks like this, or that is even more structured, because there are some that are like even more structured than this, will give you a very sharp, dense application of contour. One that's a little bit like this and moves a little bit more will give you a slightly softer look. So just depending on what you want, if you want one that's pretty sharp and very concentrated, then go for a brush that looks like this. If you want one that is a little bit softer, a little bit more fluid, then go for one that looks like this. But you just want a small brush so that it doesn't go everywhere. And then what you can do if you have done a very sharp application like that is to either go in with your bronzer brush or a softer brush like this to kind of diffuse and just soften it out just a little bit. But again, you want to keep it concentrated. You don't want it spreading out all over your face, okay? Boom, boom. Blush. Blush brushes, there are a dime a dozen. For a blush brush, again, you want something that can move quite softly, so quite diffused. Again, this brush doubles up as like a multi-purpose one. It's the one I was talking about for bronzer. This would work perfectly for blush, and I do use it for blush. I think actually that colour that's on there now is blush. Alternatively, you have brushes that look like this. So they're angled. Yeah, angled brushes like this are also great for blush. So go ahead and use that because it kind of fits into your cheek. Alternatively, a lovely tapered brush like this is another Real Techniques brush, and super fluid in terms of the bristles, moves really well, perfect for blush. So any type of brush that looks like this will sort you out for your blusher. You want to soften it, you want to blend it, you don't want a hard patch. Alright, miscellaneous brushes now are kind of highlighter brushes. I'm just grabbing a few. So for highlight there are a couple of options. The typical brush for highlight looks like this. It's called a fan brush and is mostly used to apply highlight to the tops of cheekbones. Also can work for a nose, maybe also even a brow bone highlight. But it's just not my favourite, and possibly because also I haven't tried many other brushes like this. So they're probably really good made ones, but this was really cheap. I can't even remember where I bought it from. It doesn't have a name. I think I bought it for like 200 shillings or something and then just wanted to try it out. But it's not my favourite. But if you are interested in this, then it will apply highlight to a very specific area. The thing that I'm worried about with this kind of brush is that it will leave a line, like a strip. So just be careful if you are going to apply like this. Maybe work it in circular motions as well so that you can diffuse that line and it doesn't look like a strip on your face. Other types of highlighter brushes are these kind of like pointed, tapered brushes. These are great. So this one is the e.l.f. small tapered brush. I use that for highlight. And this one is part of that black set with the powder brush and foundation brush and other brushes. F25 brush, I really like this, tapered as well for highlight. And then this brush is a total anomaly. It's kind of like a stipple brush. It's got powder on it right now. But it's like a stipple brush, and I use this sometimes for under eye setting and sometimes for highlight. Because it has the different sized hairs, it kind of applies it in a diffused kind of look and it doesn't give you a very harsh highlight. I'm not a fan of like super bold highlight. I like it to look quite subtle and blended in, and so a brush like this would help diffuse that as well. If you've gone in and it's like, oh, it's a bit too much, a brush like this is perfect just to come in and kind of blend that out. Maybe pick up some of your finishing powder and go over it so that it settles in. Alright, so that covers face brushes. I hope that wasn't too quick. You can rewind, catch back up. Let's move on to eyes and brow brushes. So for brow brushes, I have a couple of recommendations. So for brows, you need a spoolie. You need a brush that has a brush on the end, okay? So you can either buy a spoolie on its own like this. This is just like from a totally random set. Really like this. You want to make sure that it's not too stiff, otherwise I think it will mess up your brows. I mean, I haven't tried one that's too stiff, but I can imagine if it was very, very stiff and not moving at all, then that wouldn't really do what you want it for your eyes, and it might actually take off your brow product. So a single spoolie like that, or a double-ended brush like this. So this one has a spoolie on one end and an angled liner brush on the others. I love this brush. It's also part of a set, an eye set from AOA Studio. Love, love, love the brushes from this and use them all the time. And I like this particular angled liner brush because it is small in size. Same for the spoolie. So, I mean, you can see in terms of size, this one that's on its own is pretty big and this one's quite small. So if you want to be very precise with what you're doing with your brows, a smaller spoolie is perfect just to kind of touch up your brows. If you've got a lot of brow hair, then maybe this one isn't too bad, so you figure it out. And then you've got the stand-alone angled liner brush, which looks like this. I talk about this all the time. I love this brush. It's from Susie Beauty. I don't know whether they still sell it. I hope they do. It's amazing. Get you one if you can. It's just perfect for either doing your brows, but I use mine for carving out my brows with concealer. It's amazing. If I lose this, I don't know what I'll do. I'll cry. And if they don't still have it, then I'll have to start a hunt again to look for where I can get a brush like this. But get you one of those. Okay, next up is brushes for your concealer. So blending out concealer, you want a brush that looks like this. They all kind of look the same. They have like, these ones are filthy so you can't see the colours, but they have like a dark gradient at the bottom and like a white gradient on top. I don't know whether you can see all that powder that came out. These are perfect for blending out concealer and for setting your brow area, your eyelid area. So I really like these and use them on an absolute daily basis. You can either get these in set. I know you've seen these around in Kenya, they're everywhere. Pick you up one of these. They're really good for blending out that concealer. The next thing I want to talk about is brushes for your eyeshadow. There are an infinite amount of brushes that you need, or you could possibly, there are an infinite number of brushes that you could possibly get to do your eyeshadow. I'm going to try and narrow it down to like the absolute basics, just so that you're not overwhelmed. So I just want to show you a few brushes, okay? The first one is a blending brush. I think this is absolutely necessary in everybody's collection. Blending brushes look like this. They come in all types of sizes, all types of colours, all types of finishes, all types of hairs, lengths, whatever. But you need at least one of these in your collection. I have several in this pink set. I have several that I've bought kind of randomly. I have, like, for this example, this one that comes out of that black set, that one that comes out of that pink eye set. Wherever you get that brush, just make sure you have at least one in your kit. This will be perfect for blending out crease colours, blending out colours up here in your transition area, and kind of diffusing into a smoky eye. You don't need 5, 7, 20 of these. One is enough to start off with, but then you might have to clean it off between. So I'd say if you can, then make sure you have at least 2 of these, and then you've got some flexibility in terms of being able to do your eyes. But blending brush is absolute must. The next brush that I think is an absolute must is one like this. And this is called a shadow brush. Where are the rest? Shadow brush. So again, these come in kind of different sizes, but they tend to be like kind of rounded on top. This one has a slightly different shape. These are really good for putting on shadow onto your lid. So if you have like a shimmery metallic kind of lid like this, these are really good. Again, these you'll find in almost all brush sets, but you probably only need one of these because you can clean it off quite well and add on another colour. So I would totally recommend that you get at least one shadow brush like that. I have several in different shapes and sizes, but one is enough. Then I would recommend that you get a flat brush, right? So they're usually typically called flat concealer brushes. So they look like this. So they're kind of pinched and they're very flat. These are perfect again for shimmer shades, but for more difficult ones, especially ones that have like glitter in them and have like a little bit more texture, this kind of a brush is really good to apply onto your lid. You can also use your finger for those types of shadows, the shimmery metallics and the glittery ones, but sometimes you can't get the precision. So I like this kind of a brush to get the precision. You can see how I've got quite a sharp line on my eyeshadow today because I used one of these brushes. In fact, this one in the middle, that's the one that I used. And they're also really good if you want to do a cut crease with concealer. They'll double up as your concealer cut crease brush as well as your eyeshadow application brush. So that's kind of like a double multitasker, and so I would recommend that. I'm going to talk about some other brushes now. These are completely optional, but I just want to let you know so that you're aware that they're there. So this type is a pencil brush. It looks a little bit like a blending brush, but a lot more dense, more packed in, and typically a bit shorter than a blending brush. These are really good for very precise application of colour, say for example in your crease, or if you want to put colour and blow out your eyeshadow at the bottom, you can use one of these as well. I typically use these for when I'm doing a smoky eye and I want to pack on colour in the crease as well as kind of blend out the bottom. That's what I would use that for. And then there are, do I have more than one of these? Okay, I should have more than one of these, but I can't see where it is. But this is basically an angled fluffy brush. So it's a shader brush, but it's angled. This is really good if you find it tricky to work into that crease and keep your colour really tight, and you want something that will work in that tight space. This fits in and is really easy to kind of create that lovely arc effect in the corner. So I'd recommend that as well. The other brush is a little detailer brush. These either come as little pointy brushes or little kind of flat looking concealer brushes. I use these for inner corner highlight or for putting a very kind of neat pack on colour down here. Ones like this one come in that pink set, and then I've got like ones that I've picked up along the way just kind of randomly. So for inner corner highlight and for putting on a very sharp colour under here, that's what I would use them for. If they're kind of pinched and not pointed, they can also really work well for kind of lining your lips with liquid liner or lipstick. They work really well for that as well. Oh, and the other final brush I'm going to talk about is a smudge brush. Really tiny kind of shader brush, but like a really, really tiny one. Again, it's perfect for smudging colour here along your waterline and blending that out. Alright, so that brings me to the end of this video. I'm hoping that was short and sweet and easy to understand. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below in the description bar. As per usual, I will shoot you back. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!